Hello and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be talking about Catachans and some of the tactics and things that you can do to make them better. Before we begin, if you'd like to see more videos like this one, please hit the subscribe button and destroy the bell button and you'll see more videos like these. So Catachans, the fluff behind them is that they started on, well, the world of Catachan rather unsurprisingly. The planet that they live on is a jungle world where everything and anything is designed to basically wipe out human life. So needless to say, it's hard to survive on the world. They even have to fight the jungle to keep it at bay, as it wants to destroy the bunkers and everywhere they live. Maliciously. So, needless to say, to survive even to the age of 10 means that they would have had to have been probably better than we are, and then to survive to adulthood, even then, even less survive. So, that's the fluff behind it. The actual regimental doctrine to reflect that is Catachan. It says brutal strength. In the deadly jungles of Catachan, only the strongest survive. The sons and daughters of this death world are ferocious warriors, taller and more powerful than typical humans. The rules are, infantry units with this doctrine add 1 to their strength characteristic. In addition, they can add 1 to their leadership characteristic if they are within 6 inches of a friendly Catachan officer. So I don't specifically say that it has to be a platoon or company commander, so it could possibly be a tank commander. Basically adding 1 to your leadership, so making them slightly more survivable in that respect. And it also says, each time a vehicle with this doctrine fires a ranged weapon that makes a random number of attacks, e.g. heavy d6, heavy 2d6, etc., etc., you can reroll 1 of the dice used to determine the number of attacks made. So it says each time it fires. So I'm unsure whether that actually means if you had like, let's say 2 heavy flamers, so 2 heavy flamers on a Lumen Russ, you would fire d6 on each one and you could reroll either one of them. However, if it was 2d6, 2d6s, then you would have to only roll 1 of each. That's it. Yeah, that's it exactly. So what does that boil down to? Obviously we've already discussed the exact rules, but for the infantry, it means that they're better at fighting and slightly less likely to run. So there's other ways to buff your leadership, but you can get that from your +1 from being within 6 inches of an officer. You can get +1 from a standard, well, literally a standard bearer. So let's go back to the, I'm just flicking through audibly, obviously, to the page with the infantry on it. So your standard leadership is 6, but usually you'll keep your sergeant around for good measure. So Catachans would be a 7 or an 8, and if you have the company standard or whatever it's called, you would have a leadership of 8 or 9, which is pretty nice for Catachans. So that's basically immediately makes them a lot braver, because that's what Catachans are, obviously within 6 inches of your company commander or any officer therein. Vehicles fight surprisingly a lot better. So the reason they fight better is obviously we've already mentioned the d6, but there's a lot of weapons for the guard that use a random number of attacks. So obviously we've already mentioned heavy flamers. There's flamers, standard, but you don't really get flamers on tanks anywhere. Battle cannons, plasma cannons, death strike missile launchers, manticore missiles, or whatever they're called. I want to say Hellstrike missiles, but they're probably not. Principally speaking though, a lot of these models, a lot of these units fire a random number of attacks. Sorry, I'm missing one out, a massive one, rather obviously, like Bane Blades and Shadow Swords and stuff. Something that will definitely use a random number of attacks, and you can basically make your average go up in shots, so you can put on more damage, which is pretty tasty in my opinion. Another thing you can do with your infantry, being that they have +1 to strength, so instead of being strength 3, they are strength 4. Now, your standard infantrymen without buffs, which we will talk about later, aren't exceptionally special. However, it does mean you've got an edge on other guardsmen, chaos cultists, termagants, I believe. I think they're strength 3, aren't they? Toughness 3. So basically, fire warriors, anything like that. Basically, it means you can hit back without being wounded on 5s. You're going to hit on 3s the majority of the time, 4s or 3s the majority of the time. So one thing you could do, I'm not advising it, is you could actually have a bunch of platoon commanders or company commanders. I'd probably go with the platoon commanders, since they are able to actually, they've got the same weapon skill and the same amount of attacks. So I'd go with them. Give them all power fists, so you could have like 4 of them. They've each got 3 attacks, so they'd be hitting on 4s because they have a weapon skill of 3. So it means that they are, let me just double check that because I don't want to be lying to you guys. Platoon commander, yeah, weapon skill, ballistic skill 3. So you'd be hitting on 4s because of the -1, but you would be at strength 8. And obviously 3 attacks each, 12 attacks in total. And in fact, because you are officers, I don't believe, yeah, it just says infantry units within 6, so you could possibly issue orders to yourself. You could also use the fixed bayonets, so in the shooting phase you can fight as if it was the combat phase. You can get 2 rounds, so like 24 strength 8 attacks, which again is a massive point sink for all the power fists and company commanders, but it could be a surprise unit, just for fun. So that's one thing you could do. I mean, you could do a variation upon, so you don't actually have to sink that much points into it, basically. So now we're going to talk about the Heirlooms of Conquest. Now, there's a lot of good ones, general ones for Guard, which are always lovely. The Dagger of Tuskar, which basically, Tusak, yeah. I'm going to say the Dagger of Tusak. Basically, the bearer and 1 infantry unit can set up behind enemy lines, blah, 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 blah. You can set them up within 3 inches of each other, anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within 6 inches of the battlefield edge and more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. What that basically means is that you can effectively deep strike with your thingy and another unit. So obviously you would use this for maybe a unit of infantry, flamers. It could be anything that's infantry based. Now, it could be a massive blob of conscripts that you just pile on. Probably not the best idea. However, it's an alright one. You can use it in a different way as well. It says there's Kuros Aquila, which basically means you get on a 5+, you get +1 command point. So these are generic ones. Depends how you're going to build it. If you're going to build it for a combat-based army, because usually Catachans are slightly stronger, especially the characters are a little bit better. You have the Death Mask of Olinus, which is basically gives the bearer a 4+ invulnerable save, which is lovely. And it says, in addition, once per game, at the start of any of your turns, the bearer may immediately heal D3 wounds. So if you're in dire straits, you're in your last wound, you can heal D3 wounds, which is lovely, in my opinion. Also, good golly gosh, there are also some other good ones for more combat-themed heroes. Things like the Blade of Conquest, which is, obviously it's a melee weapon. It's +2 to strength, -4 AP, and D3 damage. So it's okay. However, the other one, which I'll talk about in a second, I prefer for the damage output. And basically it'll be okay. So if you've given a couple of units extra special weapons, you could just give them power swords. Well, no, that you could give this version of the power sword. The downside is, so the AP4 is good against, I'd say, anything with a 3-up save without an invul save. So that's where you would probably go with that one. And remember that instead of being strength 3, it would be strength. It'd be plus strength 3, so it'd be strength 6 instead, which is lovely. And the Catachan specific Mammoth Tusk Blade, if I can pronounce that correctly, is +2 strength. Again, it'd be really +3 strength, -3 AP instead of the -4, and it does a flat 2 damage. So if you've got 3 attacks, use a possibility to do 6 damage, which is lovely. There's no -1 to hit from what would be a power fist, so you're going to hit on 3s instead, and you're more likely to hit basic characters on 3s, wound on 3s anyway, which is pretty good. On most things you're going to wound on 3s, apart from tanks and such, blah 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 blah, but you shouldn't be going against them with the Mammoth Tusk Blade. So now we're going to have a brief talk about the stratagems and which ones you can use them. Obviously, Guard do have a few, so you can do all the usual ones. They're not restricted by any of the other ones aside from the regiment specific, other than Catachans. So basically a good one to use would be Consolidate Squads. It says use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase, choose an infantry squad, page 93, so not doesn't say like you can't use conscripts or veterans or anything like that, but it just says infantry squad that is within 2 inches of your infantry squads from the same regiments. You can merge the squads, these into a single unit. They are treated as such for the rest of the battle. So this would be good if you're trying to keep someone bogged down in combat. You could consolidate and basically encircle them if you wanted to, or just keep you guys going, or you could do it to buff the orders and other such things. So it's a decent one for that one, but it's one way you could use it. Vicious Traps. This one is the Catachan specific one. It says, it's 1 command point. It says, use a stratagem. When an enemy unit finishes a charge, move within 1 inch of a Catachan unit from your army that is wholly within a terrain feature. Roll a dice. On a 4+, that enemy unit suffers D3 more 1. So this is quite situational, but if you know you're going to be using a lot of terrain or you're going to be sitting in terrain, so obviously Catachans are pretty good defensively, you could use this one as, again, a mind gaming. So I might use that this turn, or if you charge me, we can use that one. So again, you can use it a bit of a psychological warfare to make them think twice about charging you, but it can also help. So there's a 50-50 chance of giving D3 mortal wounds to the unit, basically taking a couple of guys off or gals before they actually get in and get stuck in. So another one, this one was mentioned on the community site. It says Vortex Missile. So use this stratagem before you fire a Death Strike missile. You can reroll failed hits for this shot. So if you're going to miss, you can reroll them, which is lovely. In addition, you can add 1 to the roll to determine whether other units within 6 inches are hit. If a model is wounded but not slain by the attack, roll another dice. On a 6, that model suffers a further D6 mortal wounds. Notice how it says model. So you're almost guaranteed to wipe them out. So obviously that, coupled with the whole Catachan ethos and the whole re-rolling of the D6. So we'll have a little look at the Death Strike. So the Death Strike is heavy 3d6. So you could re-roll 1 of those dice. So you might average out maybe about 9 shots normally, maybe, but you can re-roll it and make it slightly more. It says this weapon can only be fired once per battle, rather obviously. Blah blah blah. This weapon can target units that are not visible to thingy each time it hits. Good golly gosh. Each time you hit with this weapon, it suffers a mortal wound. So if you get 3d6 shots and you hit with every single one of them, they suffer 3d6 mortal wounds. Blah blah blah. Roll a d6 for every other unit within 6 inches of the target. On a 4+, that model also suffers d3 wounds. So instead of d6, it's d3. So basically what that's telling you is you get to reroll the average. You get to reroll missed hits. So you're going to almost every shot. So normally you've got a 50-50 chance unless your ballistics goes lower. We'll assume it's at its best. You are going to reroll any misses, so you're going to bring that average way up, which is better than rerolling ones in that specific area. You're also, let's go back to it, and basically instead of if anyone's suffered, I think that was the tactic, wasn't it? Good gosh, sorry about this, guys. Yeah, it says if a model is wounded but not slain, you can roll another dice. On a 6, that suffers another d6 mortal wounds. So in other words, you've got a 1 in 6 chance of getting another d6 wounds on a model that has suffered a wound, which is lovely. We're going to talk about Warlord traits. Grand Strategist is okay. Basically, you can reroll a single hit, wound, or saving throw, and on a 5+, you get a command point. So 1 in 3 chance, you get a command point back. That's okay. Obviously, there's a bit of a nerf to it recently where you can only receive 1, I believe it's either per phase or per turn, so you can keep getting them back every time you use it. if you've already got one back. But it's a way of getting them back. Old Grudges is okay, again, especially if you're building a combat-themed army. After deployment, but before the first battle round begins, choose a unit in your opponent's army. You can reroll failed wound rolls for Ashton Militarum units from your army that target the unit you chose whilst they're within 6 inches of the Warlord. It doesn't actually say specifically for Catachan only, so if you've got other units like Cadians and stuff in your army, multiple detachments, you can actually use that for them. Basically meaning you can pick a guy or a unit or a tank, whatever, and you go, right, I'm going after that, and reroll failed wounds. As long as you're within 6 inches. It could also be built for shooting as well. Tank commanders are okay for that as well. So there's a couple of others. Another one is Draconian Disciplinarium. Within 6 inches of your Warlord, you can reroll failed morale tests. So you're probably going to pass them anyway, or you're more likely to pass them, but you can reroll failed ones, which is going to make them tougher. So the Catachan specific one is called Lead from the Front. It says this warlord can perform a heroic intervention if, after the enemy has completed all their charge moves, they are within 6 inches of the enemy units. The warlord can move up to 6 inches when performing heroic intervention, so long as they end their move close to the nearest enemy model. In addition, if your warlord was charged or performed a heroic intervention until the end of that phase, you can reroll all failed hits made for them. Which again is good if you're building a combat-themed Catachan army. It's not so good if you're not. So basically, if you're building combat-themed, you could go for that, and you would get to reroll failed hits. So any power fist hits or anything like that are more likely to go through instead of hitting on, well, basically, you've got a better chance. You're going to reroll failed hits. Also, you can do a heroic intervention at 6 inches instead of 3 inches. So that is okay. My instinct there is saying going for the Draconian Disciplinarium, just because it's going to make you guys stick around a lot longer. Now I'd like to talk about Ashton Militarum orders. There's all the lovely ones which everyone likes, but probably the best one, if you're going to be building them for a Catachan combat themed or at least defensively themed, would be fixed bayonets. This order can only be issued to units that are within 1 inch of enemy units, so if they've either charged or been charged the turn before. The ordered unit can immediately fight as if it were the fight phase. So you're going to get another swing. So if you've got some power weapons or you've just got a bunch of guys, you can get an extra attack in. So instead of being 1 attack per turn, your Catachans are 2 attacks per turn if you do it that way. And they're already in combat, so the only other choice is to retreat and then get back in the fight, which means you can shoot even if you fell back. Now there is the Catachan specific one, which is Burn Them Out. It says you can reroll the dice when determining the number of attacks the ordered unit can make with flamers and heavy flamers until the end of the phase. Basically mirroring the Catachan tank, with the exception of it just being flamers and heavy flamers, but we're going to be using a lot of that on considering that the Catachan box set comes with at least 2 flamers, and it's basically only flamers. And a lot of knives. It also says, in addition, units targeted by models from the ordered unit with these weapons do not gain any bonus to their saving throws for being in cover. So you wouldn't get it for las guns, because it says to the weapons, with these weapons, flamers and heavy flamers, basically mean they won't get a cover save. Now, one way I've thought about doing this, probably not the most point efficient, but it's definitely one way you could do it, would be to have a command squad with 3 flamers and a heavy flamer. Now you could double this up, chuck them in a chimera with either a company commander or 2 platoon commanders, and you could definitely get this off. You would get, for each command squad, you would have 3d6 worth of normal flamer shots, which you were going to re-roll if you get a 1 or a 2. If you've got a 3, keep it, because the average is it's a decent average. But you could get a lot worse. You're only gambling up with a 2. You're only gambling going down by 1 in that respect. Anyway, so you can get 3d6 shots with strength 4, auto hits, 1 damage with no cover, which is what it used to be with flamers, And the heavy flamer, which would be D6 strength 5 shots, -1 AP and 1 damage. So a Space Marine in cover is only going to get a 4-up save, and obviously a scout, probably more aimed at these guys, are only going to get a 5-up save, because even with a camo, whatever they got, -1 thingy is +1 to the cover save, isn't it? They don't get the cover save. So you're going to be a bit nasty on those guys, and they're going to have -1 on the save. So, as I said, you could put 2 units in a chimera, good gosh, a chimera, meaning you would get 6 D6 flamers, re-rolling random shots, and 2 D6 heavy flamers. It would make a nasty amount of wounds, and it would just generally be a very painful way to die. So now we're going to talk about the characters. So in this one, there is actually 2 characters which we can take, unlike with the Valhalla one I did previously. The character you can pick is Colonel Ironhand Straken. He is, for all intents and purposes, a company commander, but he's a lot tougher. He has a 6-inch move, standard, weapon skill 2+, so he's good at fighting, ballistic skill 3+, he's good at shooting, he's strength 6, toughness 4, wounds 5, attacks 4, leadership of 9, so surely he's a leadership of 10 with him being within 6 inches of an officer. That's an aura effect. He has a 3-up save, so he's a lot like a Space Marine. He also has a 5-up invulnerable save. So it says Colonel Ironhand Straken is a single model armed with a plasma pistol, shotgun, frag grenades, crack grenades, bionic arm with Devil's Claw. Only one of this model may be included in your army. So the bionic arm with Devil's Claw, this is what we're talking about combat here, is a melee weapon. Strength user, so instead of being strength 6, it's actually going to be strength 7 because he's a Catachan. He has -1 AP on that one, so he's got 4 attacks at strength 7, -1 AP, and 2 damage apiece. So if you get them all through, not entirely likely, you also you could possibly get 8 damage through. But there is also another thing here. It says all models in friendly Catachan units within 6 inches of Colonel Ironhand Straken at the start of the fight phase can make 1 additional attack each time they fight during that phase. So instead of 4 attacks, he's got 5. Because he's also a friendly Catachan model within 6 inches of Colonel Ironhand Straken. Doesn't make sense, but that's the way it is. So he is going to be strength 7 with 5 attacks, possibility of 10 damage if you get them all through and you're super lucky. Not always, but you know, it happens. Been there, seen it, killed it. You can reroll failed wound rolls made for Colonel Ironhand Straken in fight phase when attacking monsters, and obviously this is specific. Anything that's a monster model, you're probably going to be going against Tyranids when you're using this more often than anything else, but basically means you've got strength 7 and you're rerolling wounds, so it's going to be pretty nasty in my opinion. Pretty cool model. He also issues 2 orders, so he's basically like a company commander. Now I do like Colonel Ironhand Straken. I'm not entirely sure on the points now because of all the changes and stuff, but he's pretty cool in my opinion. So now we're going to talk about Sergeant Harker. So this is a model which can make your Catachans act like Cadians. Obviously we'll discuss his roles first. He has a movement of 6, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, so he's kind of like a Space Marine in that respect, so he's actually going to be strength 5. He is toughness 3, so not so much like a Space Marine, 3 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 7, seen his arm, let's see if he's an officer. He's not an officer, so he does not get +1 to that one. He has a 5-up save, so not invulnerable save, but he is a character, so if you keep him with you guys, unless there's a sniper about, he's probably alright. The main thing that's got going for him is this Harker's Hellraiser's special rule. You can re-roll hit rolls of 1 in the shooting phase for friendly Catachan units within 6 inches of Sergeant Harker. That's even if you've moved. So you can run about the board, as long as you've got Catachan with you, Harker with you, you can re-roll 1s. That can also be to your tanks, anything that is a Catachan, friendly Catachan units, which is lovely. He also is. He also has this special heavy bolter, which is called Payback, 36 inches, assault 3, strength 5, -2 AP, 1 damage. So he can also spit out shots as well. Another way we can get rerolling ones is with Yarrick, but it's not entirely fluffy because they don't like commissars. Maybe they'd make an exception for Yarrick because he's not entirely a douchebag, but it's another way of getting rerolling ones short of the order to reroll ones. We'll call it a day on the characters there. In addition to Colonel Ironhand Straken's ability to give +1 attack, there is also another way you can do it. You can use a Minister on Priest. The Minister on Priest has a 6-inch move, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength and toughness 3, wounds of 4, 3 attacks, leadership 7, 6 up save, 4 plus invulnerable save. So he's not special on his own, he's not going to be killing anyone exceptionally. You can basically have 4 or 5 attacks with a chainsword if you wanted to because of his own ability. However, the main thing that makes him special is the fact that he can, it says, War Hymns. You can add 1 to the attacks characteristic of all models in Adeptus Ministorum Infantry and Astra Militarum Infantry units within 6 inches of any friendly Ministorum Priest. What that means is you're not going to get extra attacks for each Ministorum Priest, but you're going to get at least 1. So what you can do is you can couple him with Ironhand Straken, as I mentioned earlier. So instead of your Catachans being 1 strength 4 attack, they become 2 and 3 strength 4 attacks for your Catachan infantry squad. So that's just your basic infantry 40-man squad is going to be 3 attacks if you've got those 2 next to you. You can have multiple Minister on Priests as well, nothing stopping it. So you can at least have 2 attacks on the majority of you guys if you want them. Another thing to do in addition to that is probably rather obvious, I've already talked about it to an extent, is the fixed bayonets order. This order can be only issued within 1 inch of an enemy. Basically, the ordered unit immediately fights in the fight phase. This is in the shooting phase. So instead of fighting with 3 attacks, you will get effectively 6 attacks per battle round, which is pretty good. It's pretty impressive. Orcs only get, 2 attacks, they get 3 for a chopper and 4 if there's plus 20 models, so you're actually hitting more times than orcs. So what we'll say there is, obviously you're not going to fight as hard as orcs in thingy because they have a toughness of 4, so they're going to take a lot more damage. But you can give out a good amount of damage, especially if you're playing defensively. You can have these guys next to your guys and they're going to do a lot of damage to anyone thinking they can just get an easy ride to just chew through some guardsmen. Yes. So now I'm going to do an overview of the Catachan army. So the Catachan army is quite fluffy. It does reflect the background of the army, and they have a couple of characters and obviously extra special units that can make them fight better. So effectively they could be better than Cadians because they can reroll 1s with Sergeant Harker next to them, possibly Yarrick if you want to be unfluffy. They can also reroll random attacks on their tanks, so they can do that and reroll 1s if you've got Harker with you, and they can fight harder. They're going to have, as we've already mentioned previously, they can have 3 attacks or 6 attacks a turn. Your infantry, which is better than the Cadians' 1 or 2 attacks. Needless to say, whether you're playing them offensively or defensively, the combat capabilities of Catachan, there's a lot of C's there, is pretty impressive in my opinion. And you could always use that as psychological. I always say this, you can use it as psychological warfare. Tell your opponent how many attacks your guys can have. Now, even if you're just using them to screen your tanks, if you've got these other characters next to them, they are a bit dangerous. It's not just a cut and dry decision. It's not like, yeah, we'll do that. Ooh, maybe I shouldn't do that because I'm going to get swung back and have my face smacked in. They're actually going to hit more times than Space Marines, which is quite impressive in my opinion. Tank, if you're building a tank army and it's not a tank and infantry unit, then obviously your Lemus battle tanks, all your big tanks are going to re-roll their misses and they're going to be significantly better in that way. I'd probably still bring Harker along. I know it's not very fluffy. Just sit him in the middle of the tanks and you're going to get that rerolling one's aura, which is lovely. So, tell me what you think in the comments down below. If you think I've been wrong completely, tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to hear it. If there's something I've missed and not put into this video, please put it in the comments down below. So if anyone else is reading, they can always check in the comments section and they can be corrected or fight even better. It can also help me. I can learn to play better and I can use these tactics that you guys give me. So if I've missed anything, please tell me in the comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching.